Early, I am tired. Please make a lot of noise to keep me awake for David Naughton. Good. I'm impressed.
Hey.
Welcome. How's that coffee treating you?
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello, hello. How are you, darling?
Good. Look cool in here. Huh? Chilly Willy. I like it.
Day 3. Okay. You know I'm a fan.
Is that how we're starting this?
Because he always gives me, crap because I ask him about my favorite projects that he's done.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, was it Another Day's show?
All of them.
All of them, yeah.
But I want to ask you about one specific one.
She has these obscure questions about. Well, we'll find out. And let's see who gets bored first, you or me. Okay?
Well, the thing is, you're not a one-trick pony.
Not a one-trick pony.
You've done a lot of things, like American Werewolf is a damn good trick, but you've done so much that I think deserves attention.
Okay.
How about, let's start with the sleeping car.
The sleeping car. If I mention any of these things, let's how about a show of hands? Who's ever heard of the sleeping car? See? Hey, there we go.
Whoa!
All right.
I got it on
The sleeping car was a little movie that I did. I'm not even sure what year. It was after American Werewolf.
Late 80s.
Yeah, I was going to say 89 maybe. And the sleeping car was in a little apartment. It was a train car that was for rent behind this lady's house out in Malibu, California. But it was so spooky looking, you would never rent it. Of course, I go, I'll take it. Well, it's the sleeping car and it's haunted. John Buechler, I think many of you might have heard of John Buechler, was the makeup artist and special effects person who played the mysterious, this train car had been in a train wreck at one point, and so John Buechler plays the engineer who comes back to haunt this sleeping car. But my experience of it was, it was a silly little movie. I used to laugh about who would rent this thing. But there were people like Jeff Conaway was in the film.
Judy Aronson.
Who
loves the movie, by the way. She's the one that turned me on to it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin McCarthy, who was in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And at the time he was in his 80s. And he lived to be well into his 90s and worked right up until the end of his life. But I had never met a guy who, talk about scene stealer. I mean, this guy, and he didn't even know what he was doing. Well, I shouldn't say that. He was very crafty. But he had so much enthusiasm. It was very infectious for me as a young actor going, wow, I want to be like this guy. He loved to show up in the morning. He wanted to work. He was there participating and, as I said, he came off really very well in the film as well. So I said, he was one of the guys that I was so happy to have done this project because I get to hang out with, Kevin McCarthy for a little bit. But otherwise, there were things that happened on the show, like there was I'm trying to think of the actor's name, Steve. He was a swimmer. He was an Olympic swimmer. Steve Lundquist.
Yeah.
Are you his aunt?
No, I was just looking it up and I saw his name.
You knew who he was.
He's from Atlanta. He's from the
Oh,
Atlanta.
he is. That's right. And he was an Olympic swimmer, was he not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he plays one of the victims, and there was this bog, kind of little swampy area that we used, and he goes, yeah, I'll go in it. It was definitely, you wouldn't want to swim in this thing. And he was in there floating like a dead, victim for hours, and of course he got sick, as did a number of other people on the show. And then one time, one of the vans, and we were working nights. Nights are brutal when you're trying to make a film, or anything, that night shift. It's 2 or 3 in the morning, and come on, we gotta do this close up, we got this other big scene coming up. And you'd wrap at dawn, the light would kill you. When the sun comes up, you have to stop shooting. But, so we had one of these vans, these production vans, was going over this little bridge where the backyard was, where the sleeping car was, this location. And it broke down. So it trapped everybody that was parked behind this vehicle. fortunately, I got out ahead of this production van for just for luck, and got to go home at 7 in the morning after working all night. Everybody else was there until they're calling a tow truck and they'd come and pull this production van off, and then everybody got to go home around 9 or 10. I just remember it caused a big fuss because they wanted to be paid for having to stay there. And I don't believe that happened. Sleeping car. Check.
Check. So, funny story about sleeping car is Judy, when we were in a con together quite a while back, mentioned it to me. And she's like, "Have you seen it?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "It's hard to find, but maybe you can find a copy." And I found one copy on DVD, and I bought it. It was like $20, and I bought it. There's VHS ones that were hundreds of dollars. I don't know VHS player. So I bought one copy, and she goes, "Oh no, that's the last one." I bought the last one, and so I gave it to her, and then she gave it to her distributor or something. So there are more copies out there now because of Judy.
Oh really?
Yes. So you can find it online way easier than I found it. But no, I gave her my copy. I'm like, if you want it that badly, you're in it. You deserve it. And then she gave me a copy also. But yeah.
I wasn't sure she was much of a fan of the film.
She really liked it. And she told me about it, and she told me to watch it. And then she really was upset that I bought the last copy. Really bummed about it. But thanks to her, it is now out there available for you guys to find if you wanted to, for a reasonable price.
I hope you have questions of another little film like the Brutal Massacre. Do you have any Brutal Massacre questions?
I do not have Brutal Massacre.
Brutal Massacre questions? Anybody heard of Brutal Massacre?
Tell me all about Brutal Massacre.
Show of hands besides me that have seen it. I was in it, so I've seen it.
Tell me all about it. Ooh, really?
Brutal Massacre is kind of a fun movie, particularly because it's I don't know, we're calling it a mockumentary. It's a film of making a film called Brutal Massacre, and I play the director, and it's a horror film. And some of the things that happened that we put in the movie, it's a comedy, but it's very authentic in that it opens at a Fangoria convention, and I'm one of the guest directors. And all my films are supposed to be so successful. Well, this particular film, Brutal Massacre, that we're making in this movie is terrible. But of course it becomes a big hit, similar to The Producers, which was the first time that ever happened. But it's pretty neat. It's got some really cool horror people in it. Gunnar Hansen, the late great Gunnar Hansen, has a terrific performance in this film. If you get a chance to see or get Brutal Massacre, I think you'll enjoy it. As I said, it's a comedy, and things that happened to us on this, in the course of making this film, happened to the actual directors. Stephen Mena, his name is. Whereas it was one of his earliest films. He hadn't done that many films where he writes and directs them. And there was a case in point of, we're out there, on location, and we need something, and I turn to a guy who's standing there, and I give him money out of my pocket, saying, "We need this such and such at a hardware store or something. Here, take the production van. Here's some money. Go into town, get this stuff we need for this scene, and come right back." The guy goes, jumps in the car, and takes off. Well, it turns out he didn't work on the film. He just happened to be standing there. And this actually happened to Steve Mena, where he gave money in a production van to a total stranger. And they were able to get it back, of course. We supposedly hire a special effects guy who's supposed to be top, and he basically gets a blow-up doll, as one of the victims in this. So anyway, it's pretty darn funny. Mick Garris plays one of the real directors at the Fangoria. Tony Timpone, that people know from Fangoria, is in it and introduces us as the host of the Fangoria convention. Because we have one of the up-and-coming directors from other movies, and the titles of the previous films that I've directed in this movie are very bizarre. So, if you get a chance...
What era, what time period is this? Like 90s or 2000s?
No, it was, 2007, 8,
okay.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, thank you for giving me my homework for next time.
Homework for
You're in trouble now.
Brutal Massacre. That was kind of fun. We shot in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And how many movies have been shot there? Not many. I think he had a deal. The director had some sort of arrangement with the Bethlehem steel mills, which had been closed down. And so they're just these enormous buildings, empty and spooky. And he said, we're going to get a chance to shoot on the, where they are located. Turns out asbestos was found in the buildings. They were completely, shut down, and nobody could get to them. So we were stuck in Bethlehem going, now what? And he found somebody talking to someone that had some outbuildings, like on a farm. So we all moved our whole production over to this little farm and shot these scenes. But I was saying, Gunnar Hansen's in it. Who else? Jerry Bednob from 40-Year-Old Virgin. Very funny guy. He plays the director of photography. He didn't know the first thing about a camera. We're going, Jerry, you look this way into the camera. And he's supposedly the cinematographer. But he does a very funny job. Ellen Sandweiss from The Evil Dead is in it. And her other two, I forget the other two women who were in that Evil Dead movie with her also appear in the film. And Brian, what the heck's his last name? I'm blanking. From Clerks. Brian O'Halloran from Clerks plays my first AD. So, it's kind of a funny movie. And enough about that one. Check. Check that one off.
Okay, well, let's talk about you for a while.
Okay.
A subject you know.
All right.
I would love to know.
The last question? Is this the last question? I gotta run back to my table. I don't know what we got.
I would love to know how did you start your acting journey, and who started first, you or your brother?
Well, I have an older brother, James Naughton, who's an actor. People remember from Planet of the Apes, the TV series. He was one of the astronauts. But he's 5 years older.
And a Tony Award winner, like award
he was a big Broadway guy. Chicago in '97. He won the Tony for that, playing the Billy Flynn character. But not only that, how about this?
From Boulevard of Dreams, which is this one-man show.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he also got a chance to invest in Chicago, the Broadway musical, which, by the way, has been running for, I don't know if it's finally closed or not, but for 27 years, getting a check from the royalties. Not a bad investment. We all grew up in Connecticut, West Hartford, Connecticut. My parents were teachers initially, and we just were in public schools. And you get a teacher that inspires you. We had a guy in choir in the high school who was he taught us to sing. Both my sister, who was older than me, and my brother, who was older than both of us, there were three of us, taught us to sing. There was the high school musicals. That's really where I started getting my sort of theater experience, getting a chance to do something, doing a musical in high school. Then in college, I went to the University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, where they had musical stuff. Nothing that you could get credit for, because it's kind of a hard school. But I was definitely pointed towards acting. I got involved in theater and performing in an all-male group, doing political review. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. And then after that, I decided, when I was a senior at Penn, they had a scholarship to study anything in England that was, the money was put up by former alumni of the university. And there was a scholarship to study, and they would pay the tuition and give you a nice stipend to live there. But you had to apply to whatever field you were in. You had to apply to the grad schools. So I said I was going to go to drama school. So I applied to the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, Lambda, and had to go to New York for an audition, which I remember didn't go quite well, but it was a funny piece that I auditioned with. And I wasn't used to auditioning. You're in college, you have to prepare a piece and go in and present it to some people that are sitting there like, make us laugh, go ahead. And it turned out to be something that they responded to, and I was accepted to go to this drama school in London. So I went there for 2 years and learned basically about classical theater. It was really just Shakespeare. Wow. I had studied Shakespeare. I was an English major at Penn, but to actually be in a classroom with kids that we were going to do productions of it, and of whatever play we were going to do, and we did a couple of Shakespeare plays at Lambda. It it was really a terrific experience for me, not only from the curriculum, which was, you know, getting to be an actor every day in a classroom, but also to go to theater. I mean, this was in the 70s when I was there, but I got to see, you know, Laurence Olivier on stage, John Gielgud, Paul Schofield, Alec Guinness. They were in the West End, and so we would get these cheap tickets, and we were so brazen. You know, nothing. We were going like, hey, we're theater students, so we get these really cheap tickets. And you know, in England, if any of you've been to London and you buy theater seats, you can buy cheap upper circle, which is like balcony. You know, you're like looking like this down at the play. And then what we would do is, because we would go to the theater almost, you know, at least 3 times a week, we'd look and we'd see where the empty orchestra seats. And we're going for them. Now, people in England don't do that, but take some brazen American drum students. We go, all right, looks like row A, B, C, D. Row E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over from the left-hand side, of course. Okay, so you have to wait because there's a thing called latecomers. You know, you can't go in when the play starts, the lights go down, and the curtain goes up. You can't take your seat. They will hold you back. It's called the latecomers. Don't come in until, you know, it's an agreed moment, 5 minutes into the play, or at some point they'll let you sneak down and take your seats. So we had to time it. Just before lights go to half and they start the play, we'd be poised, we'd run down, and this happened all over the National Theater, the RSC, any West End theater, it didn't matter. We thought we walked like we knew where we were going, our theater tickets, we got our tickets, our upper circle tickets, it cost like £3, but we're going straight for the orchestra seat. So I did that on many occasions, and only once in 2 years was I coming in when the actual theater ticket holders were coming in the opposite side. We were both going for the same seats. And I knew I was going to lose that one because I didn't have the tickets. Yeah. So, but you just could brazenly, you know, do it and get away with it. And we got to see so many people came to our drama school and talked to us. You know, Gielgud shows up and some of these other actors who were, you know, world renowned. And to see them on the British stage and then to have them come over and speak to us, it gave me a sense of going, hey, you know, these are like real people who are actors by profession, but, you know, we get a chance to talk to them and, you know, they really do exist. That's who we are. And anyway, it made it easier. It made me feel that it was something that I could accomplish. And so I did that for 2 years. The third year was for, you know, basically to do productions and to look for employers. And I couldn't work in London, in England at the time. You know, you just can't get a permission as an American student, you know. So I left after 2 years, went back to New York, and auditioned for the New York Shakespeare Festival. Joseph Papp, who was the guy back in the 70s. And there was a production of Hamlet that they were getting ready to do. It had been done in Central Park, and now it was going to be done at the Vivian Beaumont Lincoln Center, you know, a fall production with Sam Waterston, whom everyone knows from Law and Order. Sam Waterston's Hamlet, with a number of other young actors. There's a cast of 40-something people. So I auditioned and was cast, and it was an equity, a union show. So I got into the Actors Union for theater, which is called Actors Equity Association. And that's what really sort of started my career. Other people in that cast, my roommate was Mandy Patinkin, that people know Mandy from a number of television, you know, became a big singer, and, you know, he was pretty we were all unknown. Who else was in? Bruce McGill, who's had a big career and is on stuff. Who else was on the show? Stephen Lang, who everybody knows now, you know. He and I had opened the play of Hamlet. It opens with 2 soldiers going, "Who's there?" And Steve Lang and I had doing our first jobs, you know, off Broadway. And that ran for about 3 months during the course of like November to January in New York, being in a production of Hamlet, and getting a sense, going to Joe Allen's afterwards, you know, which was just sort of the theater restaurant, and see people from other shows. And it's really got a sense of, hey, this is what it's like to be a working actor in New York. And then when the show was over, I got to find out what it's like to be an out-of-work actor, which is something that everybody has to experience.
Unfortunately, it seems like as an actor, you spend a lot of your time out of work.
Well, you do. I mean, or auditioning or looking for work, and in those days, and I think it's changed somewhat, was, we were all into regional theater. We were going to see what theaters are coming to town to audition actors to try to go off to like Minneapolis or, Washington, D.C. or somewhere where there's a theater that they're doing a production of something that we'd be writing for and we could audition for and work. So I had different, people would say, are you interested in stage management at all? I go, not at all, but if it gets me in the door, be, an actor in a show. So, and lo and behold, an understudy stage management job came to me in New York. A production called Da, which is an Irish name for dad. And there was an Irish play called Da on Broadway, starring Barnett Hughes, who won the Tony, and there was a family of Irish people, and I understudied the young kid in it, and got to be the assistant stage manager. So I learned how to call a show on a Broadway stage where you're off in the wings, and you're calling the cues, lights and sound. And it was a really cool responsibility. There was an actor in it who had it in for me for some reason, one of the stars. He was this guy was just tough. And so he was becoming very demanding. And I knew that if I ever had to go on for the young guy, I had scenes with this guy who was making my life a little miserable. So I said, this is not going to go well. So at some point he gave me some shit, and I got in his face. And said, if I get fired, I don't care. You're not going to talk to me like that. He said, I'm sorry. And I realized he was a chicken. This guy was just a bully. Excuse me. So, but this was the time when I remember Vice President Mondale came to the show. One of the matinees that I was the stage manager, of course. So I'm running the show, and they got Mondale in the audience. Well, what that means is you got Secret Service backstage, and they got these guys coming back at the show goes up at 2 o'clock matinee. At 1:45, I got 6 guys back there who are all, Secret Service guys going, the theater's about to be locked, so no one will be coming or going from the theater, no one will come in or come out. Oh, and that's great, but you can't stand there. So he goes, why not? I go, because you're on stage. Well, what are you talking about?
You're part of the show now.
Yeah, you're on the stage. You can't stand there. He goes, word, Secret Service will tell you what to do. Shut up. I said, okay. So I call this, lights to half, lights out, curtain, the curtain goes up, and there's literally a guy who's standing there like this. Whoa! He runs off because I told him, you're on stage. He was a Secret Service guy. And then afterwards, Vice President Mondale came back to meet the cast, and you have to sort of stand there, and it's all kind of formal and fun, and they come in, and then they go. There's a motorcade, and away they go. So that's kind of fun. My brother tells the story.
You had a lot of experience.
Well, my brother tells the story of at Chicago when President Bill Clinton comes to the show and invites them all afterwards out to invite his family out. So they all have a limousine, and my brother's kids are with them, so they all pile in the limousine with Clinton and go up a one-way street in New York to some restaurant where Clinton's going to hold court. I go, yeah, that's probably better than my Mondale's story. But still, it's pretty cool.
Yours is funny.
Yeah.
With the Secret Service.
Secret Service guy. So that's that.
American Werewolf?
Should we get to some werewolves?
Yes, werewolf.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any werewolf questions or any
Let
other
me tell you
questions?
just a couple things people usually the most asked question is, how long did that makeup take? That must have taken forever. None of you sound like that, though. Others do. And I go, yeah, it was 10 hours a day. What we did was we shot the entire movie, wrapped everybody, and only had the transformation to shoot at the end. The idea being Rick wanted as much time as he could to prepare everything that he needed. Now, we've been preparing this for months. It started in October of 1980. I meet John Landis, and I go right to Rick Baker's shop and start doing the molds for arms and legs and things. And then February comes, it's now the new year. February, we all fly off to London to start shooting this movie. And Rick comes over with his guys, carrying the equipment. I mean, he's got the arms and legs and masks and heads in his luggage. I mean, this was not a big budgeted film, and nobody knew what we were doing. So they bring all that stuff over, and they continue to work. And then during the course of the shooting of the film, of course, they had to put Griffin in all these decomposing makeup. And I was not really involved in a ton of makeup. The only real makeup I had to do during the course of the shooting schedule was the mask, that face that you've seen with the lenses that are scleral, contacts. But Griffin got the brunt of the makeup during the course of shooting the film. And then we wrapped everybody, and I just had a transformation to shoot, which was, let's save the hardest for last, shall we? And that was 10 hours in makeup for a day, for 5 days to shoot that transformation scene. It was storyboarded, and we were on a set, but it was, really tedious. 4 or 5 hours in, you're going, are we ready? He goes, oh no, you're not even close to being ready. Well, I look good, got all these appliances on, and hair. First thing Rick would do is put these big paws on so he can't use your hands anymore. And, they'd break for lunch, I'd be like, what do I do for lunch?
You got paws.
I got paws. So anyway, that was that. And so it was like a 5-day, 10-hour-a-day ordeal to do that makeup. And we knew during the course of it that John Landis always wanted more blood, pour more blood on this scene. He wanted it a little more gory than even Rick and the prop guys wanted in terms of some of the stuff. But we knew we were onto something pretty cool. We didn't know, how the reaction would be. It was John's film. He had, was coming off the success of Animal House and the Blues Brothers, well known. We knew this film was going to get some, but we didn't know really who Rick Baker was and how long he was going to have us do what he did. And he has admitted, yeah, I tortured the boys, he has said, But
with joy?
Well, with, practical makeup. So, and I think one of the reasons that the film has sort of lasted is that, DGI came in whenever that happened, and, practical makeup sort of went away, and then it's sort of coming back. But it sort of set the bar high for, you want to see some practical makeup, but, before computers, 1981, look at, Rick Baker's Oscar-winning, first Academy Award-winning work on makeup.
The problem with CGI is that it ages so terribly, and practical effects, as we all know and love, they just look good.
Yeah,
your movie, the 80s, the 90s, and when they throw the CGI in there,
it got a little weird. But you know what they used to do is send it off. They would leave it and say, okay, all this is going to be done in post-production. We'll send it overseas, and then they'd get it back, and what they got back was what they supposedly paid for it. So they didn't have the control on that CGI stuff that many people should have probably had, and they have since changed, certainly, with digital artistry. But yeah, so that's one of the scenes that, or one of the questions I was going to say. The other one is, there were things happen on everything that we shot the script that John wrote when he was 21 years old. This is a film that he had this thing for werewolves, and he wrote this screenplay at 21 years old, and it reads pretty darn well. There was a scene in the zoo, for example. Now, I know I'm going to be running naked. There's going to be, they go, what kind of control do we have? Control. I go, why do we have extras way over there? They go, oh, those aren't extras, the zoo's open. Oh, how nice. So we had overstayed our, allotment of 3 hours or whatever they gave us to shoot a couple of the scenes. And now the zoo's open and people are milling around, and we're over in one section of the zoo, and I'm running, stealing the code from him, and then it's the kid with the balloons and all that little stuff we're trying to shoot in a sort of remote section, but it's wide open, folks. How you doing? The crew's giving me, at this point in the show, I don't know all the guys, and they're going, it's pretty cold out, isn't it? Pretty cold, yeah, it is cold. March in London, and I'm naked behind a tree. So that was that. Other stuff, I don't know, other things. The car crash in Piccadilly Circus is a big deal, and we didn't have permission to shoot it. There was no permits given, so they wouldn't close Piccadilly Circus. It's a main artery in London. So they said, John Lennon said, I will get the scene. So they steal the scene by showing up, you know, at the pre-dawn hours with multiple cameras positioned all around the buildings in Piccadilly. And on action, all the stuntmen were leading cars in each of the 5 streets that converge on Piccadilly. On action, they all came flying in, crash, and you'd hear, cut, 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 and then they just dispersed. So we got that scene in like 10 minutes. It's in the film, but nobody knew the better for the fact that we stole that scene from the good folks at Piccadilly. Thank you. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Jenny Agutter was fun. She was really enjoyed being the only lady in this movie.
Jenna has one.
Do you remember what appliance took the longest during makeup?
Which
appliance?
ones?
Yeah.
You know, once I got into the transformation, and the body is a elongated, you know, rubber thing that Rick made. I mean, it was pretty primitive. The feet had poles on it that went through the floor, and there was a guy underneath basically just moving the feet, you know. And I was under the floor too. I was in the floor. And then, you know, they'd start, oh, let's see if he's ticklish. I go, if you do that, I will pull myself out of this. You know, so there's that kind of silliness going on. But anything to do with, you know, any of the facial stuff, that took hours for any of the appliances to work. The hand was just a mechanical hand that Rick and his team built. And it worked great. And it took like 5 minutes to shoot. You go, okay, that's the scene we want, we got it. And Rick would go, no, wait, come on, this took me months to build. And he'd shoot some more. And Landis would look at him like, what else does it do? Just well, it stretches. That's we got. So it was always that back and forth between Rick wanting more of his work being filmed and shot in different angles, and John knowing exactly how he wanted it, and he did. You know, we were in this. As Jack's puppet got more and more decayed, it became a puppet at the end there in the movie theater, where we're all sitting there with the victims, and Griffin's there, and it was basically a puppet that they could operate through the back seat of the theater seat, and Griffin was behind, voicing the character in the scene, but he wasn't actually there. It was a mechanical device. So I got to work with another wooden actor.
Do you have a favorite scene of the movie? Not necessarily one to shoot, but as a viewer watching it, do you have a favorite?
Well, I thought that was the best written scene, where all the victims are talking about how to kill yourself, and you can try that. Oh, or what about that? And I just thought that was one of the better scenes written. I was real wary of when we were in Trafalgar Square, another major thoroughfare, and I'm trying to get arrested when I find out that I'm the guy that I'm probably the one that attacked these victims. So I'm trying to get arrested, and I go up to a cop, and I start yelling, Queen Elizabeth is a man. Trying to yell that out in Piccadilly. It's going to draw some attention, even though we had extras and people there. I mean, we did draw a lot of attention while I'm screaming top of my lungs. So it made me a little worried. I've been to drama school there. I knew the ropes. I knew that, when you go as a student, you have to go to the police station, register as an alien student, and have a little card, special thing, and they want to keep tabs on where you are. And so I knew that even though we were on location and we were shooting this film, and everybody in the movie was, British, with the exception of Griffin and John and Rick and I, we were on their turf, so we had to behave ourselves.
Was it nice to go back after?
Yeah, it was fun. You go back and you go, hey, this is per diem. What? Yeah, you're gonna get to go out and go to dinner. Because as a student, drama student, we were definitely living on the cheap.
Yeah.
as one does. But any other questions about? Yes, you have one.
What did you do for lunch?
With
your
the
boss?
Yeah, I was like milkshakes. I go, you guys don't know how to make a milkshake? I mean, it's that kind of stuff. Well, we've got. So it was, yeah. It was just. And then we had a photographer always, taking photos, and he was a well-known Life magazine. His name was Bob Willoughby, and he took a lot of really cool photos, many of which I use, stills that he took. But he was really bugging me when I was in the makeup because, at some point you're just so pestered by guys, messing with you. You just want to take a break, so I take a break. I walk down the hall, and Bob would be walking behind me, like, what do you think, I'm going to do something? Pull the makeup off, or do something crazy? So I said, give me a break, Bob, come on. And then he passed away, and his whole estate were all his photos from all the things he'd done. So we had contacted his son to try to get some really interesting stills from the film, and he wanted $1,500 a picture. And I went, well, I'll just stick with the ones I've got. Thanks very much. So that's sort of that.
Any others? Yes.
So switching gears a little bit, what was it like to be on set and be involved with the Sharknado movies?
Oh,
Silliness.
Sharknado.
I like you.
Yeah, that's. Did you bring? I think
No.
you brought up a Sharknado.
Not-
She steered clear of Sharknado.
Not yet, not
I was a
yet.
little disappointed, obviously, because I saw it. I went, oh boy. It's as an actor, you don't generally know, even if you read a script and you can have the script in your hand, is not an indication of exactly what the movie is you're going to make. And for that was sort of a guest star part with the director. And I was so far away from the set. They had shot stuff, and they were, by the time I got to be on it, and green screen, and then they're gonna, the other half of the scene that I'm in was shot in London, and I'm in Glendale, California, shooting the other half of the scene that he wrote. So I was a little disappointed, to say the least. And one that he'd say, well, you have to live this one down. He'd say, well, you were in the Sharknado family. I think I got a Christmas card. Thanks for joining the Sharknado family. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. About all I have to say about that. I don't know. Any other tidbits? Yeah.
Was there any scenes that were taken out of the movie that would have explained the plot a little bit more?
Of Werewolf, American
Yeah.
Werewolf? No, pretty much what you see is what we shot, and I don't know that there are any deleted scenes that were left out. It's all, it's pretty straightforward. These guys get attacked. This guy's going to turn into a wolf. And he's not going to make it. And, that was the thing. And reading it, I knew that how was I going to approach the whole idea of, turning into a werewolf, and what does that mean? But what the transformation part was, and I approached it from an actor's standpoint of just having a terminal illness, having a situation that was unsurvivable. This was a situation that was going to happen to me. And I was in denial, as many people can be, when they get the bad news that, that this is not, it's not going to end well for you, which is what all the information that I was getting from a character standpoint. And Landis did it with a tongue in cheek. He had a lot of laughs throughout the course of this film. He liked to play practical jokes on you too, which, it's not every actor's favorite thing to do, is in the course of the scene, tell one actor to try something differently in the next take and not tell you. So suddenly you get surprised and he's going, I want that real reaction. Well, how about leaving it up to me to give you that real reaction? Why do you have to try to manufacture it by tricking me? So he's like that. Well, Summer, is that it? Does that do it?
No.
Oh, you have more?
Well, that guy right there has one, and then
You have a question?
we got
Yes,
more people.
sir.
How did
Oh, Making It, yeah. Making It was a series that I was offered, actually. I'd done a series of commercials for soft drink that people probably remember before. But so at Paramount Studios, they had the rights to all this Saturday Night Live, or Saturday Night Fever music, and the idea of doing a spin-off for a television series was the idea behind this disco series called Making It. I was curious about the music, and they said, well, we have these guys, Freddie Perrin, Dino Figueres, who at the time had Shake Your Groove thing and reunited the Peaches and Herb songs out, and they were well-established songwriters. So I had to go basically meet them, talk to them, audition for them, and say, hey, I'm interested in this, because it's sort of my point of view of playing a character in this series of Making It. They said, yeah, okay, you can do it. So it was really simple. I got a chance to go in the studio. We knocked this song out over the course of, I remember it was a Thanksgiving weekend, and in a studio, took about 8 hours to sing this in 2 sessions, and these guys were great, and they said, we got it. And it was released, then the series was premiered. It was all the titles, was the background of the music, but the song was released as a single as well, and climbed the charts. I mean, it was on RSO label, which was Robert Stigwood, who basically had the Bee Gees, and he was, he ended up basically, fighting with the Bee Gees over, rights, and basically dissolved the record label, which is where but wait, because my song had taken off, went to number 5 in the top 40. I had this gold record, and it was basically, the theme song for the series. The series was on ABC, and we were on after Mork and Mindy, which was a huge hit. And we were going, we're in, all it took was, we figured, was this lead-in of 8 o'clock, Mork and Mindy, 8:30, Making It. Well, we were on there for like 3 weeks, and they said, we're moving you. And they moved us to a death spot, Friday nights, 8 o'clock, opposite Different Strokes, and The Hulk, and Goodbye Making It. And there's a lyric in it, no more making it, which is what we were singing, as we saw our ratings were really going down, and that's what happened, but the song wouldn't die. So I ended up going on American Bandstand, and Rockin' New Year's Eve, and sponsored by Dr. Pepper. It was a double hit. And, doing things for the music community. Merv Griffin from Las Vegas, going, wow, this is a long way from drama school, but, I'll give it a shot. So that's how that happened.
Saw someone else.
Yeah, in American Werewolf, was there anything that you were allowed to keep from set, or something that you wish you would have been able to keep?
Well, we all wanted the pub sign, and that was right to lamb. It's, the slaughtered lamb.
Yeah.
It's the original size pub sign was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But by the time, at the end, you just kind of want to make, put some distance between you and the.
You're like, I just want to go.
But I was in London a few years ago at a show, and a guy comes up with this garment bag. He goes, what's in here? I go, no, what? He opens it up, it's the coat, it's the red parka. He goes, I got the red parka. Oh, no, do you want me to sign it? He goes, oh, no, I don't want to. I guess you brought it for me to see. But yeah, and what had happened is on many shows, at the end of a movie, the wardrobe is generally for sale, to the crew or anybody that wants to. And so I guess one of the crew members bought the parka because it made sense working outside in London, in England. It was a warm coat. And he was an electrician or something, and he was telling somebody on another show that he was on, yeah, I got this from some werewolf movie, and the guy bought it off him. He said, let me buy that jacket from you. And then it ended up in this guy's possession.
The guy probably put it together pretty quick. Like,
He said, yeah, and it was damaged. I mean, there were some, the pocket had been torn. I go, that didn't happen in the film. It's not. It happened on the set of wherever this guy was working. But funny things how that works. All right, folks. I think without further ado, if anybody has any more questions, does anyone have any answers? I'm always looking, I'm always looking for the answers. Yes.
What's your favorite thing you ever worked on?
Oh, gosh. I'd have to say, there were a lot of challenges on the Dr. Pepper stuff, particularly because it was dancing on the streets of different locations that we were in, and casting. I originally went in as an audition with 300 or 400 other guys, but over the course of a couple of years, having done those, I was in the casting session and watching people come in and audition and getting to see how people get jobs, which is enlightening but also discouraging because you wonder how anybody gets a gig, particularly back then in the commercial world, because so many people in casting had opinions on who would be. So, but I had a lot of fun on that. As I said, shooting on location. Werewolf has to be right up there too, I would think, because with the exception of the makeup, which was a challenge, it was really fun. Working in London, being in a city that I had studied in and knew pretty well. It wasn't like a new city to me.
All right, everyone, give it up.
Hey, thank you so much for coming out, folks. Appreciate it. Thanks for the day.